The Runaway Promise. 6 months later, Olivia stood in the bridal suite of St. Catherine's Cathedral, staring at her reflection in the full-length mirror. The wedding dress, a custom Marchesa creation with hand-embroidered lace and a cathedral train, was stunning. It should have been a dream come true. Instead, she felt like she was being slowly suffocated. 15 minutes until we need to start, her mother's voice came from behind her. Patricia Winters adjusted the diamond hairpins securing Olivia's veil. You look perfect, darling, perfect and trapped. The past months had been a whirlwind of engagement parties, venue tours, and cake tastings, all carefully documented for social media and business publications. Behind the smiling photos, Olivia and Matteo had settled into a cordial but distant relationship, meeting mostly for events that required their joint presence. Mom, can I have a moment alone? Just to center myself. Patricia squeezed her shoulders. Of course. Don't be too long. Your father will be here soon to walk you down the aisle. As the door closed, Olivia's composure crumbled. She paced the room, her elaborate dress rustling with each step. The window overlooked the cathedral's side garden with a small service gate that led to the street. Beyond that gate was freedom. Before she could second-guess herself, Olivia grabbed her clutch, hiked up her dress, and slipped out the door. The hallway was mercifully empty as she hurried toward the back staircase. Her heart pounded as she descended, the weight of her decision growing with each step. Outside, the afternoon sun momentarily blinded her. She rushed across the garden, her heels sinking into the soft grass. The gate was just yards away when she heard footsteps behind her. Olivia! She froze at the sound of Matteo's voice. Slowly, she turned to face him, expecting anger or accusation. Instead, he stood there in his tuxedo, his expression a mixture of concern and something else she couldn't identify. I'm sorry, she whispered. I can't do this. I know. He took a step closer. I saw you leave the suite. I was coming to talk to you anyway. That surprised her. About what? Matteo ran a hand through his dark hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty from someone usually so composed. About how we've been lying to ourselves for months. Pretending this is just business, isn't it? Her voice caught. That's what you agreed to. I agreed because my family gave me no choice. His eyes held hers. But also because from the first time I saw your work, that community center you designed in South Boston, I knew you were extraordinary. Not just talented, but passionate about creating spaces that matter. Olivia stared at him, stunned. He had never mentioned her work before. You researched me? Of course I did. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Wouldn't you research a potential life partner? I visited every building you've designed in the city. Your vision. It's remarkable. So you agreed to marry me because you admire my architecture? She couldn't keep the incredulity from her voice. I agreed because I thought maybe, given time, we could build something real. He gestured toward the cathedral. Not this spectacle our families wanted, but something of our own design. Olivia felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. We barely know each other, Matteo. That's true, he acknowledged. And if you want to walk away, I won't stop you. But before you decide, he stepped closer, his voice dropping. I think we owe ourselves the chance to discover what could be here, without the pressure of our family's expectations. Before she could respond, shouting erupted from inside the cathedral. Someone had discovered the bride was missing. They'll be looking for us, Olivia said, panic rising again. Matteo surprised her by taking her hand. Then let's disappear. Just for today, no Rivera-Winters merger discussions, no wedding planners. Just Olivia and Matteo getting to know each other. The wedding can wait, or never happen at all. That's for us to decide, not them. Olivia looked at him, really looked at him for perhaps the first time. The man before her wasn't the cold businessman she'd imagined. His eyes held warmth, and something that looked remarkably like hope. In a moment of clarity, she realized she didn't want to run away alone. She wanted to understand this man who had apparently seen something in her worth knowing. One day, she said finally. No promises beyond that. Relief washed over his face. No promises, he agreed, then hesitated before adding, Except one, to be honest with each other from now on. He gently pulled her away from the gate, toward a small path that wound behind the cathedral. As they hurried away, his hand warm around hers, Olivia felt something unexpected unfurling in her chest. Not love, not yet, but possibility. Behind them, the cathedral bells began to ring, announcing a wedding that wouldn't take place, at least not today, and not in the way anyone had planned. Instead of walking down the aisle toward a business arrangement, Olivia found herself walking away from pretense and toward something far more frightening and exhilarating: the unknown. Unwritten vows. The Rivera family's private lake house in the Berkshires was the last place anyone would look for them. As the sun set over the water, casting long, golden rays across the deck, Olivia wrapped her hands around a mug of tea and tried to process the day's events. "My mother has called 17 times, Mateo said, setting his phone down as he joined her. He'd discarded his tie and jacket hours ago, and the casual dishevelment of his appearance made him seem more human somehow. "Yours is at 12 and counting," Olivia winced. "They must be furious." "Livid," he agreed. "Though I think they're more concerned about the 500 guests and the business implications than about us." The truth of that statement hung between them. Their wedding day had transformed from a beginning into a rebellion, and the consequences would be severe. "We can't hide forever," Olivia said, watching the ripples on the lake. "By tomorrow, this will be all over the financial news. Winter's Rivera alliance collapses as bride flees altar." Mateo's expression grew serious. "Is that what you want? For the alliance to collapse?" It was the question Olivia had been avoiding all day as they'd driven through winding country roads, talking about everything except the future. They'd shared stories from college, discussed favorite books, argued good-naturedly about architecture. She'd learned he spoke 3 languages, had backpacked across South America before joining the family business, and secretly preferred sketching landscapes to reading quarterly reports. "I don't know," she admitted. "My father wasn't wrong about our company's situation. Without the Rivera investment, the investment doesn't have to be tied to a marriage," Mateo said. "It never should have been." "Then why did you agree to it?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because my grandfather is dying," he finally said. "Pancreatic cancer. He has maybe 6 months. Before he goes, he wanted to see the family legacy secured, the business expanded, his only grandson settled." Olivia felt a pang of empathy. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. Few people do. We keep it private." His fingers traced patterns on the wooden railing. "I thought I could go through with it, marry someone suitable, fulfill my family obligation. Then I met you." "And realized I was completely unsuitable?" she suggested, trying to lighten the moment. His smile was unexpected and transformative. "And realized I couldn't bear a lifetime pretending with someone who deserved more than that. Someone I found myself wanting to know better." The admission hung in the air between them, honest and unadorned. "So what now?" Olivia asked. "We can't stay here forever avoiding reality." Mateo turned to face her fully. "What if we did get married?" Before she could protest, he continued. "Not today, not as a business transaction, but as a choice we make. We could have a real engagement period, 6 months. Get to know each other properly. If at the end of that time either of us wants out, we walk away, no questions asked. And the business arrangement? I'll convince my family to make the investment anyway, as a separate matter. Your company's innovations are worth investing in, regardless of personal connections." Olivia studied him, searching for deception and finding none. "Why would you do that?" "Because I've spent my life watching my parents' marriage of convenience turn cold and transactional. I don't want that." His voice softened. "And because today was the first time in years I've felt like myself, not just a Rivera heir with responsibilities." The proposition was unexpected, but somehow didn't feel as outrageous as it should have. Perhaps it was the quiet intimacy of the lake house, or the relief of honesty after months of pretense, but Olivia found herself considering it. 6 months, she repeated. "A real courtship with no guarantee at the end." "Exactly. We date, we learn about each other, we see if there's something worth building." He reached out, his fingers lightly touching hers. "No photographers, no press releases. Just us." The warmth of his touch sent a subtle current through her. For the first time since their engagement was announced, Olivia felt like she had a choice, and the man before her was offering her freedom within what had felt like a prison. "Our families will still be furious," she pointed out. "Undoubtedly. But they'll be even more furious if we call everything off completely." His eyes held a challenge. "So, Olivia Winters, will you not marry me yet, but give us the chance to decide if we should?" The absurdity of the moment struck her, and she laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that seemed to delight him. "Yes," she said, surprising herself with how right it felt. "I will not marry you yet, Mateo Rivera." As the last light faded from the sky, they toasted their unwritten vows with tea instead of champagne, making their first mutual decision as partners rather than pawns. Fortress of glass, absolutely not. Mateo's voice echoed in the boardroom of Rivera Hotel's Boston headquarters. "The budget is already stretched thin on this project." Olivia spread the revised blueprints across the table, fighting to keep her professional demeanor intact. "The sustainable materials will pay for themselves within 5 years through energy savings. The Rivera San Francisco should be setting industry standards, not just meeting minimum requirements." 3 months into their private agreement, Olivia and Mateo had developed a relationship that was equal parts exhilarating and maddening. As promised, he had convinced his family to invest in Winters architecture independently of their personal arrangement. The catch: Olivia's firm would design the Rivera Group's new flagship hotel in San Francisco. What had seemed like a professional victory was rapidly becoming the greatest test of their evolving relationship. "The board wants construction to begin next quarter," Mateo said, pinching the bridge of his nose. "These changes would set us back at least 2 months. "Good design takes time," Olivia countered. "Your family hired mine for innovation, not for rushing mediocre work to please shareholders." The tension in the room was palpable. Other executives shifted uncomfortably, unused to seeing the usually composed Mateo challenged so directly. "We'll discuss this privately," he finally said, effectively ending the meeting. As the room cleared, Olivia gathered her drawings, frustration evident in her quick movements. When they were alone, Mateo's professional facade softened. "You're asking for significant changes 3 months into development," he said more gently. "My hands are tied by fiscal responsibilities." "And mine are tied by professional integrity," she replied. "I won't put my name on something that could be extraordinary but settles for adequate." They had reached an impasse that symbolized the larger challenge they faced: how to balance their professional identities with their growing personal connection. That evening, in Olivia's loft apartment, a space they had come to share more often than not, the professional disagreements simmered beneath domestic tranquility as they prepared dinner together. "My grandfather asked about you today," Mateo said, chopping vegetables while Olivia stirred a sauce on the stove. "He wants to meet you properly." The mention of Eduardo Rivera, the family patriarch whose illness had been part of Mateo's original motivation, caught her off guard. Their arrangement had remained private, known only to their immediate families, who had reluctantly accepted the delayed wedding as a longer engagement to appease public speculation. "Is that a good idea?" Olivia asked. "Given that we're still figuring things out." Mateo set down his knife. "It would mean a lot to him." "And to me." The vulnerability in his voice made her heart twist. Over the past months, she had discovered layers to Mateo that contradicted her initial impression: his dry humor, his passion for conservation, his quiet generosity toward causes he believed in. Most surprisingly, she'd found herself looking forward to coming home to him, to their conversations that often stretched late into the night. "Okay," she agreed. "I'd like to meet him." Mateo's smile was worth the anxiety the prospect provoked. He moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing a kiss to her temple, the kind of casual intimacy that had become precious between them. "About the hotel," he murmured. "What if we found a compromise? Not sacrificing your vision, but phasing implementation to spread the costs?" Olivia turned in his arms, surprised. "You'd consider that?" "I've been thinking about it all day." His hands traced her spine. "Your passion for this project, it's made me see it differently. Not just as another Rivera property, but as something that could redefine what luxury hospitality means. The acknowledgement of her vision meant more than he could know. I could work with a phased approach if the core sustainable elements remain intact. As they stood in the kitchen, finding professional middle ground while physically entwined, Olivia realized how profoundly their relationship had evolved. What had begun as a business arrangement had transformed into a partnership of equals, challenging each other, supporting each other, growing together. Later that night, as they lay tangled in sheets, the physical dimension of their relationship still new enough to feel like a revelation. Mateo traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "We're halfway through our agreement," he said quietly. 3 months down, 3 to go. Olivia propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face in the dim light. "Are you counting down to freedom?" His dark eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I'm counting the days until I can ask you to marry me for real, without any conditions or escape clauses." The declaration hung in the air between them, honest and unguarded. Olivia felt a surge of emotion so powerful it frightened her. They had built something precious and unexpected. A fortress of glass, beautiful but potentially fragile. "We still have time," she whispered, not ready to name what was growing between them, to be certain. But as she settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, Olivia knew certainty had begun to take root in her heart, an architectural foundation stronger than any she had ever designed. Now, here's part 1. Midnight Deception. The champagne glass trembled in Olivia Winter's hand as she stood on the balcony of the Rivera Grand Hotel, 32 floors above the glittering city. Behind her, the engagement party continued in full swing, a carefully orchestrated event bringing together Boston's elite to celebrate what the business pages were already calling the merger of the decade. Not a marriage, a merger. There you are. Olivia's father, Harrison Winters, appeared at her side, his smile fixed but his eyes betraying exhaustion. "The Riveras are asking for you. Their son just arrived." "Did he?" Olivia took another sip, letting the bubbles burn her throat. "How thoughtful of my fiancé to make an appearance at our engagement party. Only 2 hours late." Harrison's shoulders slumped. "Olivia, please. You know how important this is?" She did know. Winter's architecture had been her family's legacy for 3 generations, responsible for some of the most innovative buildings on the East Coast. But the recession had hit them hard, and the bankruptcy filings were ready, just waiting for signatures. Unless the Rivera Group stepped in with their investment. The cost? Her hand in marriage to Mateo Rivera, their only son and heir. "I've never even had a real conversation with him, Dad," Olivia whispered. 2 business dinners with both families present hardly counts as getting to know someone. "He's a good man," Harrison insisted. "Educated at Yale, runs their North American operations. He'll be a good husband." "A good business partner, you mean?" Olivia drained her glass. "That's all this is." Before her father could respond, a ripple of excitement moved through the party. Mateo Rivera had finally arrived. Olivia turned, getting her first unguarded look at her future husband. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who had never worried about money in his life. Tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, he nodded politely as guests greeted him, but his dark eyes scanned the room as if looking for something or someone. When those eyes found hers, Olivia felt an unexpected jolt. He was handsome, certainly, with his strong jawline and broad shoulders. But there was something in his expression she hadn't anticipated. Wariness. He didn't look like a conquering businessman acquiring a new asset. He looked like someone walking into a trap. "Go on," her father urged. "Meet your fiancé properly." Olivia handed her empty glass to a passing waiter and smoothed down her emerald silk dress. As she approached Mateo, she adopted the professional smile she used with difficult clients. "Mr. Rivera," she said, extending her hand. "How kind of you to join us." His hand was warm as it enveloped hers. "Miss Winters, I apologize for my tardiness. My flight from Chicago was delayed." "Of course. Business always comes first." She couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Something flickered across his face. Perhaps recognition of her resentment. "Not always by choice," he said quietly. Before she could respond, they were surrounded by photographers, their parents positioning themselves around the happy couple. Elena Rivera, Mateo's mother, slipped a velvet box into her son's hand. "The moment everyone has been waiting for," she announced. Olivia felt a cold wave of panic as Mateo opened the box, revealing an enormous diamond ring that caught the light from every angle. This wasn't how she had imagined her engagement. A business transaction disguised as romance, witnessed by 200 strangers. As Mateo slid the ring onto her finger, their eyes met again. In the depths of his gaze, she saw not triumph or satisfaction, but something that mirrored her own emotion: resignation. "To new beginnings," he murmured, for her ears only. Olivia forced a smile, already calculating how long until she could escape this charade. "To mutually beneficial arrangements," she replied softly. Neither of them had any idea how their carefully constructed deception would unravel. "Blueprints of the heart. We're pulling our investment." Harrison Winter's words fell like stones in Olivia's office. "The board voted this morning." Olivia stared at her father in disbelief. "You can't. The San Francisco project is halfway through construction." "We have contracts with exit clauses," Harrison interrupted. "The Rivera Group's aggressive expansion in Asia has made our board nervous. We're reallocating resources to more stable partnerships." The truth dawned with sickening clarity. "This isn't about business risk. This is about me and Mateo postponing the wedding." Her father had the grace to look uncomfortable. "It's been 6 months, Olivia. Your extended engagement has created uncertainty that affects investor confidence. That's absurd." Anger flared hot and bright. "Our personal relationship has nothing to do with the viability of either company. In our world, it has everything to do with it." Harrison's expression hardened. "You have a choice to make. Secure the merger as originally planned, or watch your grandfather's legacy crumble." After he left, Olivia sat motionless, the ultimatum echoing in her mind. 6 months earlier, she would have resented being cornered this way. Now, the situation was infinitely more complicated. Because of what had grown between her and Mateo, something real and precious that defied the transactional origins of their relationship. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mateo. "Need to see you. Important news. Dinner at Eduardo's tonight?" The timing couldn't have been worse. She was scheduled to finally meet Mateo's grandfather, the patriarch whose illness had set everything in motion. Now she would arrive bearing news that might destroy not just their business relationship, but the personal one they had carefully cultivated. Eduardo Rivera's estate overlooked the Atlantic, a sprawling property that reflected generations of success. As their car wound up the long driveway, Olivia's anxiety peaked. "He's having a good day," Mateo said, misreading her tension. "He's excited to meet you." Olivia squeezed his hand, unable to find words. Eduardo Rivera was a commanding presence despite his illness. Seated in a wheelchair by a window overlooking the ocean, he greeted Olivia with unexpected warmth. "Finally, I meet the woman who convinced my grandson to delay a wedding for the first time in Rivera history," he said, his accent more pronounced than Mateo's. "Come, sit. Tell me about your vision for the San Francisco property." Through the painful dinner that followed, Olivia described the project with passion, avoiding Mateo's eyes. Eduardo listened intently, asking insightful questions that revealed his sharp mind remained undiminished by his failing body. "You have created something special," the old man said finally. "Not just a building, but a legacy. Like what you two have built together, yes?" The knowing look he gave them spoke volumes. He had seen what they perhaps had only just begun to acknowledge to themselves. "Grandfather," Mateo said, "I need to speak with Olivia privately. Business matters." In Mateo's childhood study, surrounded by trophies and photographs chronicling his journey from boy to man, he delivered the news that mirrored her own. "My family is threatening to pull out of the Winters partnership," he said without preamble. "They're using our relationship as leverage. Either we formalize the merger through marriage, or they dissolve the business connection entirely." Olivia sank onto an antique leather chair. "My father delivered the same ultimatum today. Mateo's expression darkened. They're manipulating us again. It's working. Again. She looked up at him, conflict evident in her eyes. What do we do? He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. 6 months ago, we made an agreement. Today marks the deadline. His voice softened. What do you want, Olivia? Not what our families want, not what business demands. What do you want? The question stripped away pretense, leaving only truth. These months had transformed them both, challenging assumptions and revealing unexpected depths. They had fought and reconciled, compromised and stood firm, discovered passion and tenderness in equal measure. I want... Her voice caught. I want what we've built to continue, not because of business, but despite it. Hope kindled in his eyes. Are you saying... I'm saying I love you, she interrupted, the words finally finding voice. Not the Rivera heir, not my business partner, but you, the man who sketches landscapes at dawn and argues with me about sustainable materials and makes me believe in possibilities I never imagined. Mateo's smile was radiant as he pulled a small box from his pocket. I've been carrying this for weeks, waiting for today. Inside was not an ostentatious diamond like her original engagement ring, but a simple platinum band inlaid with tiny sapphires. Designed it myself. Like our relationship, no pretense, just substance. It's perfect, she whispered. Olivia Winters, will you marry me? Not for business, not for family, but for us? Her answer came without hesitation. Yes. As they sealed their commitment with a kiss, Olivia realized they had accomplished something extraordinary. They had taken a foundation built on obligation and constructed something authentic and enduring. Their families had drafted the initial blueprints, but they had completely redesigned the structure, creating something neither had imagined possible. Later, rejoining Eduardo, they shared their decision, one made from love rather than duty. The old man nodded approvingly. I told Elena this would happen, he said, a knowing gleam in his eye. The best partnerships are never forced. They grow naturally when the right elements come together. As they left the estate, hands intertwined, Olivia and Mateo faced an uncertain future. Their families would celebrate the merger's salvation without understanding that the true merger had nothing to do with business and everything to do with hearts that had found unexpected harmony. The blueprints they would follow now were entirely their own design,